Yeah, me and Scott are actually working on a paper. So this is another thing that I think I was one of the few proponents of this. I said, we got a little complacent with our recommendations, right? So the Roger Harris and Holtman paper, they looked at average individuals, and the average weight was about 78 kilograms. And I'm with Rick Kreider. I still don't buy the ceiling effect on some of these individuals, because we actually have humans now 220 pounds, 250. Are you trying to tell me their maximal amount is about 180 grams in their muscle compared to a smaller individual? So that's all fine and dandy, and we just took that for what it is. But what we're starting to see is, and Adam Persky's probably written one of the best creatine series of reviews, 2003, and he made a good analogy that the only way we're getting creatine interskeletal muscles with the transporters, and just like GLUT4, the larger you are, in theory, you should have more doorways. So that's why we've developed this relative dosage in our lab, 0.1 gram per kg. It just seems to be just very similar to caffeine, but 3 to 5 grams, it's totally based off Roger Harris and Eric Holtman's papers, in a sense that we excrete about 1 to 3 grams a day as creatinine, and we synthesize about 1 to 3 independent of your diet. So Roger's paper, when you took an oral dose of 5 grams, it caused a huge increase in blood creatine levels, and the theory was over time that would get into the muscle. And lo and behold, 3 to 5 grams seems to be very effective from a skeletal muscle perspective. But to your point, there's never been a single study on the planet shown that anything less than 8 grams of creatine a day with exercise is better for bone. So immediately you're thinking, okay, 2 different tissues. And then when you look at the meta-analyses that have looked at all the brain creatine content, and Serge Ostiak has shown some data with acute dosages with brain creatine content about 5 grams. But when you look at all the data, it seems to be on average about 10 grams a day seems to be there for a longer period of time. So I personally take 10 grams a day for a whole body perspective. But if someone says, I'm worried about increasing bench press performance, I think 3 to 5 grams a day every day for months is fine. We're not seeing any of that with bone. However, there's never been a dosing, a study where we look at 5 grams versus 10 grams with bone, and that's planned for my lab as well. And then I look at everything going on in the world.
Darren, let me interrupt you real quick. In bone, what would be the time course you would look at? If, let's say, you're getting subjects who 10 grams a day. Are we talking 6 months, 12 months, a year? I mean, because bone, it just takes a long time to adapt.
Yeah, so Phil Chillebeck, our previous mentor, he showed in 12 weeks at a pretty high dose, including a loading phase, increased bone mineral content. And that's kind of irrelevant from a health perspective, but look at bone mineral density. We're looking at a year or two, and that's why these studies are so difficult to do. We can look at NTL peptides, and it seems to be still the higher dose seems to be effective. And me and Phil have an amazing a study coming out in MSc soon, 2 years, every day, 10 grams a day for 2 straight years in postmenopausal females to look at bone strength and bone biology, and some interesting data there. But getting back to the brain, bone, and then we haven't talked about the immune system, during times of metabolic stress, if 95% of your ingested dose goes to your muscle, and there's only 5% to go to your testes or brain or bone, it kind of makes sense. You may need a longer, higher dose for an extended period of time to get into those areas. And as we know, the astrocytes don't like to produce creatine. The transporters are turned off. So I personally think when you're sleep deprived or having metabolic stress or neurological diseases, 10 grams might be a pretty good total body dose, and no one has shown me any negative side effects from that dosage. So I personally take 10 grams a day. I take 5 in the morning, and then I actually drink 5 during my workout. It's an easy way to get it in. And I might even increase it more during times of stressors. And I think we've sort of looked at, it's very similar to protein. 0.8 grams, no one in their right mind would take 0.8 grams per kilogram. I think it's not going to have benefits. And you've shown, you can go well over 2 and have some really good benefits. And the naysayers will say, whoa, that's way too much. It must kill your kidneys. And of course, we have the data now. So I think that's the evolution. I think it could be tissue specific, but if you're just looking to get bigger biceps, maybe a smaller dose. But I think the neck up might be more important, obviously. And then when we get into clinical populations, frailty, cachexia, cancer, higher dose. So
Scott, what do you think?
Fascinating.
Yeah, so I'd just like to point out that it's still in its infancy. We haven't done those dose response studies yet. So yeah, Darren has some work to do to look at the dose response of creatine supplementation on bone. But yeah, when you look at the individual studies, And we wrote a short kind of editorial commentary on that last year that we got published. It was the studies that used the higher dose of creatine that showed the positive benefits on bone tissue.
Mhm.
And then for the brain, it just seems like a higher dose of creatine is required. So that's speculation. And I think we need to do those dose response studies to really look at that.
So my